They say a pearl is just the result of a wound that healed with time. And in this bank, at the heart of Central Park, 4 separate wounds are about to find their cure. 4 strangers, a man from Texas holding a starfish, a woman from New York with a metal star, a young man from Mexico clutching one made of rubber. They have nothing in common, except for a letter they all received and a secret they don't even know they share. On the center of this bench lies a single pearl. It's the missing piece of a puzzle that started years ago with simple acts of kindness they've all forgotten. They think they are here to solve a riddle, but what they are actually here to find is the man they once saved. My name is the only key left to turn. The Plot Witness presents 4 stars and 1 pearl. Close your eyes, join the circle, and witness how a single name can turn 4 strangers into a family.
Chapter 1. The End at the Beginning. The Bench.
They say a pearl is just the result of a wound that healed with time. A grain of sand, an irritation, a little bit of pain that the world forced you to swallow until you turned it into something smooth, white, and deceptively perfect. Most people look at a pearl and see jewelry. Me? I see a survivor. I see the scar of an oyster. I refuse to die. Take a good look at this bench. It's a standard New York City Parks Department issue. Green wood, peeling paint, and those wrought iron arms that are always a little too cold or a little too hot, depending on the month. To anyone else passing by, it's just a place to wait for a bus or tie a shoe. But today this bench is the most expensive piece of real estate in the world. Look at those 4 pairs of hands. It's like a gallery of human history sitting in a row. On the far left, you have the hands of a man who spent 40 years under the Texas sun. They're like old leather, maps of every mile he's ever driven. He's holding a dried starfish as if it's made of thin glass. He's not looking at the park. He's looking at the salt stuck in the crevices of that creature, wondering how something from the ocean ended up in the middle of a concrete jungle. Then you have her. The woman from Manhattan. Her hands are worth more than the car the Texan drove here. Perfectly manicured, not a single chip in the polish. And yet, she's clutching a jagged piece of rusted metal, a star cut from a factory floor, like it's a diamond from Cartier. She's staring at the rust on her thumb with a look of pure, unadulterated confusion. It's the first time in years she's touched something she couldn't buy. You're probably wondering how a Texas rancher, a high society socialite, a street-smart kid, and a Bronx enforcer ended up sharing a silent afternoon in the park. You should be. Because the story isn't in the pearl. The story is in the lies they told themselves before they found the courage to come here. The Plot Witness presents 4 stars and 1 pearl. Chapter 1. The End at the Beginning. Now, let's rewind the tape. Let's go back to a dusty gas station in the middle of nowhere, where a man was arguing about the soul of a brisket while holding a piece of the sea in his pocket.
Chapter 2. Road Movies and Starfish.
Before the bench, there was the dust. 2,000 miles of it, stretching across the belly of America like a scar that refused to fade. Elias didn't mind the drive. Most people hate the empty spaces between the cities, the gas stations that look like they've been abandoned by time itself. But when you've spent 40 years looking at the same horizon in West Texas, a little change in the scenery feels like a revolution. Even if that scenery is just different shades of gray asphalt and dead armadillos. He stopped at a place called Big Al's, somewhere outside of Little Rock. Not for the gas. His old truck could run on fumes and pure Texan stubbornness, but for the air conditioning. It was the kind of place where the linoleum floor was worn down to the concrete, and the clock on the wall hadn't moved since the mid-90s. And that's where he met a man who had very, very strong, almost violent opinions about wood.
You see, that's your problem right there, Chief. I can see it in your eyes. You're talking hickory. Everybody comes through here with that Texas license plate talking hickory like it's some kind of magic wand from a fairy tale. Hickory is for people who want their meat to taste like a campfire in a rainy forest. It's aggressive. It's loud. It's like a guy who yells at you because he doesn't have anything smart to say. You want soul? You use post oak. That's the Texas gospel. Or at least it should be if people had any sense left in their heads. Post oak is fine for a Sunday, son. It's reliable, it's honest, but I've seen men ruin a perfectly good brisket trying to play God with oak. They think because it's traditional, it's foolproof. But meat is sensitive. It's got a memory. You treat it with oak, it remembers the forest. You treat it with patience, it remembers the fire. It's like this here. Is that a starfish? We're in Arkansas, Chief. The nearest ocean is a long, long walk from here. And that thing looks like it hasn't seen water since the Reagan administration. It's a souvenir. From a time I forgot I was actually alive. Most people think the ocean is just a lot of salt water and sharks. But it's actually a desert. It's always trying to swallow you whole. It doesn't care about your plans, your truck, or your opinions on brisket. And this little guy, he survived the swallowing. He's dried up, he's brittle, he's got salt in his pores, and he's a long way from home. But he's still a star.
It looks like a piece of driftwood shaped like a hand reaching for help. You carry that around for luck? I got a cousin who carries a dried rabbit's foot in his pocket. Wore the fur right off of it. Didn't stop him from losing his truck, his dog, and his dignity in a poker game last November. Luck is for people who don't have a plan. This isn't luck. It's a reminder. I got a letter, son. A letter from a man I thought was buried under the salt in the years a long time ago. A man who shouldn't even know my name. He told me to bring this star to a specific bench in New York City. He didn't say why. He didn't give me a reason. He just said it was time to settle the bill. A bill? For what? You owe a guy in New York for a starfish? That's a hell of a long drive for a piece of calcified fish. I don't owe him for the star. I owe him for a glass of water. And for a moment of silence when the world was screaming. Keep the change. Buy yourself some post oak. And tell your boss the hickory isn't the problem with the sandwiches here. It's the fact that nobody's listening to the meat.
Elias walked back to his truck, the bell above the door jingling like a warning he'd heard before. He didn't tell the clerk that the letter contained a first-class airplane ticket he refused to use, or that his hands shook every time he looked at the return address on the envelope. He just felt the rough, salty texture of the starfish in his pocket and started the engine. He had 2,000 miles to go and a debt to pay that he hadn't thought about since the summer of 1994. A debt that was suddenly worth more than all the post oak in Texas.
Chapter 3. The Rubber Scent of Memory.
Matteo always said that the smell of burning rubber didn't remind him of car crashes, urban decay, or the friction of a city in a hurry. To him, it was the smell of sanctuary. Strange how the brain works, isn't it? Most people smell that acrid chemical scent and think of an emergency. Matteo smelled it and saw his father's workshop in Mexico City, a place where the world's noise was replaced by the hiss of steam and the comforting weight of a mold. It was the scent of a Tuesday afternoon where everything broken could be fixed if you just gave it enough heat. 2 days before he sat on that bench in Central Park, Matteo was standing under the iron skeleton of the J train in Brooklyn. He was holding a rubber star. It was bright yellow, slightly stained by the city's grime, and smelled like a factory in Toluca. He wasn't there to watch the trains. He was waiting for Richie, a man who lived his life as if the world was one giant pickpocket, constantly reaching for his wallet.
I'm telling you, Matteo, you're walking straight into a meat grinder. Look at me. Look at my eyes. Do I look like a guy who still believes in the Easter Bunny? No, because the Easter Bunny doesn't send letters with first-class stamps to kids like us asking them to bring a dog toy to the most expensive patch of grass in Manhattan. This is a setup, man. It's either a prank for some moron with a YouTube channel, or you're about to get fitted for a concrete tuxedo and dropped in the river.
It's not a dog toy, Richie. It's a star. There's a fundamental difference in the geometry.
Geometry? What are you, Pythagoras now? What's the difference? One is for a golden retriever named Barnaby to chew on while he's waiting for his organic treats, and the other is... well, it's the same damn thing. It's rubber, Matteo. It's mass-produced, petroleum-based dollar store junk. You could go to the corner bodega right now, buy a crate of these, and you'd still be worth exactly $0.00. You're gonna walk into the middle of Central Park, sit on a bench with a piece of trash, and expect what? A bag of diamonds? A key to the city?
Do you remember the smell of the bakery back in the old neighborhood before we crossed over? The one that caught fire in the middle of a July night? People were screaming about the bread, Richie. They were crying over the pan dulce and the sourdough. But I didn't care about the bread. I saw a man in the back, trapped behind a mountain of crates. He wasn't screaming. He wasn't even coughing. He was just holding one of these. Like it was a holy relic. Like it was the only thing keeping the world from melting around him.
So what? He was a crazy guy in a fire. New York and Mexico City are both full of them. You don't see me carrying around a rubber star just because I saw a guy talking to a fire hydrant once. That's not a sign, Matteo. It's just a Tuesday in the city.
He told me something when I pulled him out of the smoke. He said that some things are made to burn, and some things are made to endure the heat until the heat itself gets tired. He said one day the rubber will turn into something that doesn't melt. One day the star will find its sky. I haven't seen that man in 10 years, Richie. I thought he was a ghost. And then I get this letter, delivered to a mailbox I haven't used in 3 years, in his handwriting, mentioning the specific scent of that workshop. You're a poet, Matteo. And poets end up in the East River with the rest of the sentimental garbage. You're talking about symbols and smells, and I'm talking about a kid who's about to get robbed on a park bench. You go to that park, you're telling the world you're a mark, you're a target. You're sitting there waiting for a miracle from a guy who probably doesn't even have a face anymore. If he doesn't exist, Richie, then who licked the stamp? And why does the ink on the letter smell like the bakery the moment before it turned to ash?
Richie didn't have an answer for that. He just shook his head, adjusted his leather jacket, and disappeared into the Brooklyn gray without a word. Matteo stayed. He watched the trains pass overhead, feeling the rough, synthetic texture of the yellow star in his palm. To the world, he was just another kid with a cheap toy. To himself, he was a witness to a miracle that hadn't happened yet. He checked the map and the letter one last time. The ink was faded, the edges were frayed, but the promise was crystal clear. He wasn't going to the park for a picnic. He was going to find out if the rubber could finally stop melting.
Chapter 4. The Architecture of Silence.
There are many kinds of silence in New York. There's the silence of a heavy snow at 3 a.m. There's the silence of a crowded elevator where everyone is looking at their shoes. But the silence on this bench, this is different. This is the silence of 4 people holding their breath, waiting for a clock that has no hands to finally strike 12. They've been sitting here for exactly 22 minutes. To the joggers passing by, they look like a strange family portrait. To the birds, they look like statues. But inside, each one of them is screaming. Because between them, sitting on the green wood like a dropped moon, is the pearl.
It's impossible. I watched them crush the original in 2004. I saw the dust. I saw the man who held it disappear into the fire. This can't be the same one. It's a trick. It has to be a trick.
Ma'am, in my experience, when something this beautiful shows up in a place this ugly, it ain't a trick. It's a judgment. I drove 2,000 miles because a dead man told me to. I reckon you didn't come here for the fresh air either.
I came because I don't like being threatened by ghosts. I came to see who was clever enough to find my private address. And you? Did you bring that thing to a business meeting?
It's a star, just like yours. He points to the rusted metal star in her hand. Mine is made of rubber, so it won't break. Yours is made of iron, so it won't melt. But they both came from the same place, didn't they? The place that smelled like burning bread. Shut up, all of you. You hear that? That's the sound of a city that doesn't care about your stories. I'm here because I was told there was a debt to be collected. I've spent 20 years looking for the man who sent that letter. And if he isn't here in 5 minutes, I'm taking that pearl and I'm gonna find him myself.
You touch that pearl, son, and you'll find out why they say Texas is a big state. It's because it takes a long time to bury a man who doesn't know how to wait.
Suddenly, the air changes. The temperature drops 5 degrees. A man in a gray suit, carrying an old-fashioned leather briefcase, stops 10 feet away from the bench. He doesn't look like a ghost. He looks like a tired accountant. But when he opens his mouth, the sound of the park vanishes completely.
Chapter 5. The Auditor of Souls.
There is a specific kind of fear that only comes when you realize the person in front of you knows your middle name, your blood type, and the exact weight of the sin you committed 30 years ago. It's not the fear of a gun. It's the fear of a ledger. The man in the gray suit didn't look like a vengeful spirit. He looked like he spent his days worrying about tax brackets and interest rates. But as he stood there, 10 feet from the bench, his presence seemed to pull the oxygen right out of the air. He didn't look at the pearl. He looked at the 4 people holding their fragments of the past as if they were shields. Chapter 5. The Auditor of Souls.
Good afternoon. I see you've all brought your receipts. The sea, the rust, the rubber, and the lead. A fascinating collection of artifacts for a Tuesday in May. Listen, pal. I don't care if you're a ghost or a process server. You sent me a letter saying the debt was due. Well, I'm here. Now, who are you and what does this pearl have to do with the night the bakery went down? My name is of no consequence, Mr. Dominic. What matters is my function. I am here to audit the interest on a loan you all took out in the summer of 1994. You didn't borrow money. You borrowed time. You took a moment of chaos, a fire that should have claimed 4 more lives, and you used it to reinvent yourselves.
We didn't take anything. We survived. We were victims of that explosion just as much as the owner.
Victims don't walk away with pieces of a prototype that didn't belong to them, Clara. You took the Iron Star and turned it into an empire of boutiques. Elias took the starfish and turned it into 40 years of solitude and luck. Matteo, you took the rubber and turned it into a poem. And you, Dominic, you took the lead and turned it into a weapon.
And the pearl. What about the pearl? The pearl is the principle, the source, the thing the fire couldn't touch because it wasn't made of earth. It has sat in a safe deposit box for 30 years, waiting for the 4 of you to be in the same place at the same time. He pulls out a long, yellowed scroll of paper. The grace period is over.
What do you want from us? We don't have the things we took anymore. They've become part of who we are. You can't just take back 30 years.
I don't want the years, Matteo. I want the stars back. But here is the catch of the contract. Once you return the fragment, you lose the memory of what you did with it. Clara, you lose the boutiques. Elias, you lose your peace. Dominic, your power. And Matteo, you lose your poetry.
And if we refuse? If we just walk away right now?
Then the pearl stays here. And the fire that started in 1994 finally finishes its job. This bench isn't a meeting point, Mr. Dominic. It's a fireplace. And it's just started to smoke.
As the auditor spoke, the green wood of the bench beneath them began to feel warm. Not the warmth of a summer day, but the blistering, hungry heat of an oven. The smell of burning bread, Matteo's scent of home, began to fill the air, thick and suffocating. The auditor stood his ground, his gray suit untouched by the rising heat. He wasn't there to negotiate. He was there to collect. And the price of a miracle, it seemed, was the very life that miracle had built.
Chapter 6. The First Sacrifice.
There's an old saying in the desert.
You can't keep the shade and the water at the same time. Eventually, the sun forces you to choose. For 30 years, these four had both. They had the miracle of survival and the luxury of forgetting the price tag. But the auditor isn't a fan of metaphors. He likes math, and the math on that bench was starting to look very, very ugly. The heat was no longer a suggestion. It was a physical weight pressing against their skin, smelling of ash and old yeast. The pearl in the center of the bench began to pulse, a soft, rhythmic white light that made the shadows behind them grow long and jagged. The auditor stood there, his pen hovering over the ledger, waiting for the first signature.
Time is a non-renewable resource, Elias. You, of all people, should understand that. You've spent 40 years watching the horizon. Tell me, is the piece of a Texas sunset worth the lie you told in the smoke?
It wasn't a lie. It was an opportunity. I saw that boy trapped under the beam. I saw the pearl sitting there on the floor. I could only carry one. I chose the pearl. I thought I could save more people with the money it would bring.
Oh, spare us the nobility, Elias! You took it because you were tired of being a nobody. Just like I took the Iron Star because I was tired of being hungry. We all traded a life for a piece of that night. If I give you the star, if I give back the boutiques, the penthouses, the names on the guest lists, what happens to the boy Elias left behind?
The boy remains dead, Clara. But the fire that consumed him finally stops burning in your dreams. You don't get to save him. You only get to stop carrying him.
This is garbage. You're talking about erasing our lives. I was a street kid before I got that lead star. Now I run half the docks in Jersey. You think I'm gonna go back to stealing car stereos just 'cause a guy in a gray suit told me to? He pulls out a handgun, pointing it at the auditor. Take your ledger and get out of here before I audit your skull.
You can't shoot a debt, Mr. Dominic. And you certainly can't kill the man who holds the contract. The auditor steps closer, the heat intensifying. Every second you hesitate, the pearl grows heavier. Look at Matteo. He's already starting to fade. It's okay. The rubber, it's not melting. It's just getting soft. If I give you my star, I forget the poem? I forget the man I saved? You forget the miracle, Matteo. You go back to being a man who simply survived a fire. No poetry, no purpose. Just a Tuesday in Mexico City that never ended.
No. Leave the boy alone. He's the only one of us who didn't steal his future. He earned it. I'm the oldest. I've seen enough sunsets. I'll go first.
Elias, don't be a fool. You give him that, and you're just an old man with a broken truck and no memories. You'll die in a week.
A sad, wise smile. Maybe. But for the first time in 30 years, I won't be thirsty.
Elias dropped the starfish into the auditor's open briefcase. The moment the dry, brittle object touched the leather, a sound like a thunderclap echoed through the park. A gust of wind, cold as a Texas winter, swept across the bench. Elias blinked, his eyes
once sharp and filled with ancient wisdom, suddenly looked clouded, vacant. He looked at the pearl, then at the strangers next to him, and then at his own empty hands. I'm sorry. Do I know you people? I think I'm lost. I was looking for a gas station. I think I have a debt to pay, but I can't remember what for.
Chapter 7. The Cost of Iron.
There's a specific kind of sound that iron makes right before it snaps under pressure. It's a high-pitched, metallic groan that you feel in your teeth more than you hear in your ears. Clara had spent 30 years pretending she was made of that same iron. She'd built a life of glass and steel, thinking that if she stood tall enough, the smoke from 1994 could never reach her penthouse. But the auditor doesn't care about floor plans. He cares about foundations. And Clara's foundation was built on a stolen star. She looked at Elias, the man who was now just a hollow shell sitting next to her, staring at a pigeon as if it were a miracle from God. She felt the heat rising again, more focused now. It wasn't a general warmth. It was a laser-like burn coming directly from the iron star clutched in her hand. The metal was turning cherry red, but it wasn't burning her skin. It was burning her history.
You can't do this! You see him? Look at him! He doesn't even know his own name! You didn't just take his memory, you took his soul! I have employees, Auditor. I have foundations, museums, people who depend on my image. If I disappear into that nothingness, thousands of lives will be ruined.
You overestimate your importance to the universe, Clara. The museums will find another name to carve into the marble. The employees will find another face to fear. The only thing that will truly disappear is the lie that you were ever anything more than a frightened girl who ran from a fire with her hands full of someone else's property.
Give it to him, Clara. Look at your hand. The iron is starting to smoke. You think you're tough? You think you're made of steel? You're just a thief in a $4,000 suit. Give it up before the heat takes us all.
A thief? You're a murderer, Dominic. You took the lead and used it to bury people in the docks. At least I built something. I created beauty. I gave the world something to look at.
Beauty doesn't count if it's paid for with the silence of a dead boy. The iron doesn't care about your boutiques, Clara. It just wants to go back to the fire. The interest is compounding, Clara. Every second you hold on to that star, the cost of the return increases. If you wait another minute, you won't just lose your boutiques. You'll lose the memory of the parents you claim to honor. You'll be a blank page in an empty book.
I worked so hard. I spent 30 years trying to forget the smell of the smoke. I spent millions on perfume just to drown out the scent of that bakery. If I give it back, will the boys stop looking at me? In the dreams?
In the dreams, Clara, there will be no more boy. Because in your mind, there will be no more fire. Only the silence of a life you never lived.
With a scream that was more of a whimper, Clara opened her hand. The iron star didn't fall. It flew into the auditor's briefcase as if drawn by a massive magnet. A sound like a glass window shattering echoed through the park. A cold, clinical light washed over Clara, erasing the lines of stress and the arrogance from her face. She blinked, her expensive silk scarf sliding off her neck onto the dirt. She looked at her manicured hands
then at her shoes, as if she were seeing them for the first time.
Why am I sitting on a bench? I should be at work. I'm a waitress at the bakery, or I was. Sir, did I order something? I feel like I've forgotten to pay a bill, but I don't have any money in my purse.
Chapter 8. The Weight of Lead.
There's a psychological phenomenon known as the heavy hand. It's the moment a man realizes that all the muscle, all the influence, and all the ammunition in the world can't stop a single sheet of paper from turning. Dominic was the king of the Jersey docks. He was a man who solved problems with lead, usually delivered at high velocity. But the star in his pocket wasn't just metal anymore. It was becoming an anchor, and the floor of the world was starting to give way. He looked at Elias, who was trying to remember how to tie his shoelaces. He looked at Clara, who was staring at her reflection in a puddle with the blank eyes of a stranger. Dominic didn't feel pity. He felt a raw, animalistic rage. He was a predator who had just realized he was trapped in a cage made of his own sins. The heat from the pearl was now a roar in his ears, smelling of gunpowder and the ozone of an electrical fire.
Get away from me. I mean it. I don't care about your ledgers or your ghosts. I worked for every inch of what I got. I bled for it. I made people disappear so I could stay at the top. You think I'm just gonna hand over my life because you're talking about a bakery from 30 years ago?
You didn't work for it, Dominic. You leveraged a tragedy. When the explosion happened, you didn't help the others. You saw the safe. You saw the lead star that acted as the key. You took the shortcut. You traded the lives of 3 coworkers for the starting capital of your criminal career. You've been spending blood money for 3 decades.
I said shut up! One twitch and I'll see what color ink you're made of. I'm the one who gives orders. I'm the one who decides who pays and who walks.
Pull the trigger, Dominic. See if lead can kill the concept of debt. Go ahead. But know this. The moment the hammer falls, the weight of every person you've ever disappeared will be added to that star in your pocket. You won't just lose your memory. You'll be crushed by the literal weight of your actions before you can even hit the ground.
Quietly, looking at the lead star through Dominic's pocket. It's turning black, Dominic. The lead, it's soaking up the light. You can't shoot him. He's not a man. He's just a bill. And we're all past due. I have a daughter. She doesn't know who I am. She thinks I'm a legitimate businessman. If I give this back, she won't even have a father. I'll be a ghost. A nobody.
She will have a father who never became a monster, Dominic. She will have a father who stayed in the bakery and worked an honest shift. She won't have the private schools or the inheritance, but she will have a father with clean hands. Isn't that what you promised her in your prayers?
I hate you. I hate everything about this day.
He reaches into his pocket and pulls out the lead star. It's dull, light-absorbing, and looks like it weighs 100 pounds.
If I do this, does the screaming stop? The ones from the docks?
The screaming stops because the man who heard it no longer exists.
Sorry, boss. I think I'm in the wrong place. I'm supposed to be at the loading docks. I'm late for my shift. Do you know which way the subway is? I don't think I belong in a park like this.
Chapter 9. The Last Word.
There is a specific kind of tragedy reserved for the poets. It's the realization that your most beautiful lines, your deepest insights, and your very soul were built on a foundation of smoke. Matteo thought he was the witness. He thought he was the one who kept the memory alive so the fire wouldn't be in vain. But in the eyes of the auditor, there are no witnesses. There are only participants. And Matteo had been participating in a miracle he didn't own for 30 years. He sat alone on the bench, flanked by 3 strangers who used to be his companions in fate. Elias was humming a tuneless song. Clara was fixing a hair that didn't exist. And Dominic was looking for a train that would never come for him. Matteo clutched his rubber star. It was the only thing left in the world that felt real, even if that reality was made of cheap synthetic polymer and a scent that made his heart ache.
And then there was one. The boy who saved a man. The boy who turned the scent of burning rubber into a sanctuary. Matteo, do you know why your star is the hardest to collect? Because I didn't take it for the money. I didn't take it for the power. I took it because it was the only thing that felt warm when the world went cold. It was my father's workshop. It was the smell of home. Exactly. You used it to build a wall against the truth. You turned a tragedy into a poem so you wouldn't have to feel the burn. But the poem is a debt, Matteo. Every word you ever wrote, every heart you ever touched with your stories, it all belongs to the fire. If you give me the star, you don't just lose the memory of the bakery. You lose the words. You lose the ability to see the world as anything other than a series of shapes and colors. You become ordinary. If I give it back, the man I saved, what happens to him? He remains saved, Matteo. Your sacrifice doesn't undo the good you did. It only undoes the you that did it. You will be a man who works in a factory, who eats his lunch in silence, and who never wonders why the sky is blue. You will be safe. You will be free of the burden of being a witness. Squeak, squeak. I don't want to be safe. I want to remember the smell of the bread, even if it's burning. You can't keep both, Matteo. The rubber is already starting to disintegrate. Look at your hands. They're becoming as gray as the city. If you don't give it back now, you won't just lose the poem. You'll become part of the ash. You'll be the last thing the fire consumes. They look so peaceful now. They're not screaming anymore. Is that what it's like? To not have a story? It is the peace of a blank page, Matteo. It is the only peace the debt allows. Then tears streaming down his face, but his voice steady. Then let the page be blank. If it means the boy in the fire finally gets to rest, if it means the rubber stops melting. He holds out the yellow star. It looks small, pathetic, and bright against the grayness of the park. Take the last word, Auditor. I'm tired of writing.
Matteo placed the rubber star into the auditor's hand. There was no thunderclap this time, only the sound of a long, slow exhale. A golden light, soft as a Mexico City sunset, washed over Matteo. The lines of poetry in his eyes faded. The weight of the world lifted from his shoulders. He blinked, looking at the squeaky toy in his hand as if he had never seen it before.
Oh.
He drops the toy on the grass. I don't know why I was holding that. It's just a piece of trash. He looks at the auditor. Excuse me, sir.
Do you have the time? I think I'm supposed to meet my father. I'm late for work.
Chapter 10. The Empty Bench.
The world is very good at filling empty spaces. You take a man's soul, and the world fills the void with the sound of traffic. You take a woman's empire, and the world fills it with a new name on a skyscraper. On that bench in Central Park, 4 people sat together for the last time. They didn't say goodbye. You can't say goodbye to people you don't remember meeting. The auditor picked up the pearl. It no longer glowed. It was just a large, unusually heavy piece of calcium, cold to the touch. He didn't put it in his briefcase. He simply walked to the edge of the nearby pond and, with the casual indifference of a man discarding a cigarette butt, tossed it into the water. Plunk. A single ripple, and 30 years of miracles, crimes, and poetry sank to the bottom, destined to be covered by the silt and the city's forgotten wishes.
Well, I reckon I've sat here long enough. My legs are starting to complain. You okay, miss? You look a bit lost.
I'm fine, thank you. I think I just took a wrong turn on my way to the bakery. I'm supposed to be starting my shift. It's funny. I feel like I've been on vacation for a very long time, but I can't remember where I went.
Yeah, me too. I gotta get to the docks. The foreman's gonna have my head if I'm late again. Nice talking to you folks, I guess.
Wait. Did you hear that?
Hear what, son?
Nothing. Just, for a second, I thought I smelled something. Like burning bread. And I had the strangest feeling that I had something very important to say. But it's gone now. Probably just the city air.
Passing by them, tipping his hat slightly. Good evening, citizens. It's a beautiful day to start over, wouldn't you say?
They walked away in 4 different directions. Elias toward a bus that would take him to a Texas he no longer understood. Clara toward a life of service and simple dreams. Dominic toward the heavy labor of the docks. And Matteo walked toward a horizon where the words would never find him again. The bench was empty now. The green paint was still peeling. The sun was still setting. And under the water of the pond, the pearl waited for the next fire, the next explosion, and the next 4 strangers who would be foolish enough to believe that a miracle is ever free.
This has been a Plot Witness production. The debt is settled. The screen is dark.